freezing Arctic wind whips across the face of Lithuanian state border guard Gydas Sikorskas as he leads us out as close as it's possible to get to Russia. 200 meters away is the highly militarized Russian exclave of Kaliningrad, home to Russia's Baltic fleet and, according to Western intelligence, an arsenal of nuclear weapons. As we film on the bridge, Gydas warns us that the Russians almost certainly have cameras trained on us too. Below is the Nemunas River, which flows from Belarus in the south through Lithuania in a meandering crescent moon shape on the way to its mouth in the Baltic Sea. It's the border between Russia and the West, where now only the birds above cross freely. Opposite are the rundown factories and apartment blocks of the Russian city of Svetsk. Since the war broke out, an unmistakable provocation has appeared on one of the buildings, leering back at the West across the water. The border used to be busy. Now it's quiet, tense. Those who cross must do so on foot, and a warm welcome isn't guaranteed in Lithuania.
There are different opinions, but I have nothing to speak about with those who support Russia. I just do not feel like being able to change their mind.
Kaliningrad is home to some 1 million people, and by a strange quirk of history and geography is separated from the rest of Russia by NATO countries. After World War II, the three bigwigs on the Allied side, Winston Churchill, Harry Truman and Joseph Stalin, redrew the map of Europe at a conference in Potsdam. It was here that Germany's most eastern territory of Königsberg became the Soviet Union's most western territory, Kaliningrad. The Russians booted out the Germans, repopulated it with Soviet citizens, renamed it after this guy, and set about exploiting its position in the, importantly, ice-free southern region of the Baltic Sea. During the Soviet era, it became a militarized zone, cut off completely from foreigners and accessible only by permit for Soviet citizens. As the USSR collapsed and the Baltic states declared independence, Kaliningrad's land corridor with Mother Russia went with them. Now, the territory is stranded, reliant on its neighbors to allow vital supplies through by train. All well and good when relations between Russia and the West were rosier, but since the war in Ukraine, sanctions have highlighted Kaliningrad's precarious position. In June 2022, Lithuania banned certain goods such as concrete and steel from transiting through the country to Kaliningrad. This infuriated Russia, with Moscow threatening harsh measures if what they described as a blockade wasn't lifted. A deal was eventually reached, but the incident threw light on how the region is both an asset and a vulnerability for Putin. If you were to stand on the opposite end of this bridge, you'd be on Russian soil, but you'd be 677 miles from Moscow, 290 miles from Minsk in Belarus, and you wouldn't be able to get to either without traveling through a NATO member state or taking a long boat ride up the Baltic Sea. But the region also highlights a vulnerability in the alliance. Southeast of here is the Suwałki Gap, a stretch of border between Lithuania and Poland, which is considered by many analysts to be NATO's weakest point. That's because it's the only land corridor available to reinforce the Baltic states. If they were invaded, a hostile country could take the gap, isolating the Baltics from NATO.
Clearly, it's an issue. Geography matters in military affairs. We are small countries, we have pretty small military comparing to Russia, and our strategy relies not just in place forces but on reinforcements as well. NATO is working out strategies how to deal with that, and obviously, especially Finnish and Swedish accession to NATO would help us tremendously to bridge that gap, because now, of course, the only land connection we are having is with Poland, and it's vulnerable. But we need more opportunities to use land, sea, and air connections to be able to bring reinforcements in time, even before crisis starts. So that's a strategy to be prepared at home, to be ready to bring reinforcements, and of course to have precision guided weapons in the region able to strike targets.
This precarious geopolitical position isn't lost on the residents here.
Uncertainty makes every man anxious. Everyone speaks about the Suwalki corridor, and it starts just in 40 kilometers from here. They talk much about it, but Russia is right there.
If a 300 kg rocket flies over and hits Pravda, we're done. What kind of war is it? So I am waiting, and I am alert. When this happens, only running away can save one. If, God forbid, that happens, I would jump in my car and run away to Poland.
For 64-year-old Alfredus, the threat is very close to home. In fact, it's literally on his doorstep. His house is the last before the border, the first to find out if the worst were to happen.
If the Russians win, then they will attack the Baltics, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. If Kaliningrad starts shooting at us, nobody will be spared, yet the brunt would not be felt here. Should the Russians attack us or not attack us, there's not much we can do about it.
Although the border traffic has nosedived since the COVID pandemic and the war in Ukraine, there is a steady stream of people travelling back and forth across the bridge.
Some of the bridge crossers are Lithuanians, having had relatives in Sovietsk. Some of the Lithuanian citizens work there, and the same applies to the Russians crossing the bridge into the Lithuanian side. For example, there are teachers who still work in Lithuanian schools in Sovietsk.
Alfredus steers clear of the Russian visitors.
Russians still come here, those with Lithuanian passports, but I do not talk to them. They do their business here, and I do mine. That's it.
People here believe their security hinges on the outcome of the war in Ukraine.
Nobody knows how things will be tomorrow. You live and do not know what awaits you.
From here, a long lens can capture the daily life of the people of Sovetsk. We watch as they go about their business in a city that feels much farther away than the 100 meters of river that separates us.